Hello and welcome to Human Ascension with Ellie. Today I've invited a guest onto the show, and he is an interesting, if not controversial figure, dating back all the way, I think around about 40 years up until the present day. His name is Leon Ariel Mellul, and he is the chief rabbi for what is often described to be a cult of free love and UFO love called Raelianism. I was approached by a representative from the Raelian movement recently, and I think I know why. It was because here on the radio show and on the Ellie Dreams and Under channel, I have been looking into the interpretation of the Bible, and I have spotted independently a few little anomalies that I've been talking about, in particular when it comes to the way that the Bible has been translated and what this might mean for what actually happened back in the day that is described to be the creation of humanity and the inclusion of this Christ figure, Jesus, that came to help guide humanity, what happened to him in his life, and also what the plight of humanity is in the present day and the future. One of the things that I picked up was the way in which a variety of different names for God are used throughout the Bible. And in particular, I've spoken at length about how the word Elohim in the Old Testament is often used to describe God, when in fact it's a plural word and must relate to more than one entities, which would indicate either more than one gods or more than one other beings. Its literal translation is a family of somebodies that came from the sky. According to the Raelian movement, that Elohim are in fact a family of somebodies that came from the sky. They are a family of creators who were created just as humanity were created. And then it became their turn through their technological advancement to find a planet and create their own masterpiece of humanity. And of course, that turned out to be us. Slightly less than a masterpiece, but you know what? We were still created in the Elohim's image. I have read now the books associated with the Raelist movement, and I have found this interview that I'm about to show you to be quite interesting, as I found the books to be interesting. Let's delve into this interview with Rabbi Mellul, and then I'm going to talk to you about what I believe comes out of my experiences so far with a group that I do suspect have been misrepresented, misinterpreted, and misunderstood for quite a number of decades. So with that, let's take a look at the interview. Hello, Rabbi Mellul. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Ellie. Thank you for welcoming me into your show.
It was really lovely to hear from your representative, Pierre, who contacted me to see whether or not I was curious about the Raelian movement. And I've read your materials now. I think I've read the first 3 books that were published by the movement, and I found them very, very interesting. And so I responded back and I said, yes, I would love to meet with you and find out more about you, your background, your introduction into the movement, and also so much is written in those books that I'd like to understand better as well.
Sure. At least you were smart enough to read the books before giving the interview and know what we're talking about.
I'm a very curious person. So,
that's smart. That's a sign of someone intelligent.
Well, or nosy, very, very nosy. So first of all, I think, are you located in Canada?
Yes, I am located in Montreal at this moment. And I was in Israel for 18 years. And, I have been around for many, many years in the movement, almost 40 years.
Goodness, that is a long time. And
Wow.
so I understand that you came from an entirely different type of background in terms of your belief system. Could you share us just for a few moments, maybe where you came from originally?
Yes, well, I'm coming from a religious traditional family, Sephardic Jews from Morocco. On my father's side, on my mother's side, both were, very well known as religious people who were very following the religion to the point and all that. And, since I was a child, I always had questions
Yeah.
about Elohim, which is a plural, about many sentences written in the original Hebrew Bible, the Tanakh, which are not talking about a single God or a God that is everywhere. And I always, never got the right answers because this is the way we have been taught. This is the way we teach you, and this is the way you will teach your children. And this is the way it should be. So
Yeah.
there is no question to be asked. But I always had my thoughts about it, but never thought there was um, a God, and never thought about extraterrestrial life. So I was always asking myself questions. And when I was in Israel, the first time I went to Israel, I tried to meet with Kabbalistic rabbis and all that, but I was looking for something. I was
Okay.
always looking for something. Then one day, I saw a man on television that was talking about the prophets of Israel. And,
Yeah.
I always, I find it a little bit fishy the way he was talking, because someone I met before I saw this program on television was bringing me a video. He brought, first of all, a book. A book was called The Book Which Tells the Truth. And then I saw this book and I didn't want to read it because I said, what, you're going to come and tell a Jew what is the truth? And then I didn't want to read it. And it took me time, but when I saw this man on television, it was a teacher of religion at the University of Montreal. Then it was his name and his phone number. And I called this guy, and the person that brought me this video, the book, he also brought me a video. And when I saw the video, I mean, it answered all my questions. All of a sudden, I thought it was, this was a revelation for me. Then, when I saw the name of this professor at the University of Montreal, I called this guy who gave me the tape. And I told him, would you like to come with me? I made an interview. I made an interview with this professor. And then I didn't know what to talk about the movement because I didn't know a clue about it. Then I asked him to come with me, and he joined me. And I went to see this professor and told him, I made an appointment and told him, listen, I saw your program on television, and what you're telling about the prophets of Israel is not very, it's not exact. It's not perfect. What you're mentioning is something very different, because according to what I know, and I knew very, very little about the movement, this is not the truth. And he told me, listen, truth or not, I don't want to hear about it, because I am already teaching for 45 years. This is my last year. I'm taking my retirement, and I don't want to hear about it. I say, okay. Then we left, and I asked this person who gave me the tape, do you have Rael books with you in your car? He told me, yes, sure. can you lend them to me? I would like to read them. All of a sudden, told me, yes, sure. He handed me the books, and then I went home and started reading them.
And this was intelligent design.
Yes, well, there was one small book which was called at that time the book which tells the truth.
Yes, right.
And then they add another book, which is the Extraterrestrial Took Me to the Planet, and then the third book that explained it to others.
Yes.
And then I read this book, and it was like a revelation for me, because it answered all my questions, all the questions that I had since my childhood. And then what I did is that, I wasn't sure about it. What is this man telling me that he met with an extraterrestrial? And this is mentioned on the first book that you have read in the Intelligent Design. On the first part of it, it's mentioning about the Elohim. It's mostly demystifying the original Hebrew Bible with many verses. And then I took the original Hebrew Bible. I took a translation from Hebrew to French, because I didn't speak Hebrew at that time. Even if I knew all the prayers by hand, I never knew Hebrew, and I never talked Hebrew, because we didn't learn how to speak Hebrew or understand Hebrew. Then I took the book, I took the original Hebrew Bible, I took a dictionary as well, and I started going word by word and sentence by sentence in all confirming. And it was like a revelation that without any doubt, the Elohim mentioned in the original Hebrew Bible never were a God, one single God. They were an extraterrestrial civilization. And it's written very clearly. And since then, I decided to help Rael spreading the messages among Jewish communities worldwide. And I have been lecturing for almost 40 years in Montreal, Toronto, Miami, New York, all over Europe. And in Israel, I left Canada to go to Israel, where I lived for 18 years. And then I was lecturing there for many years, hundreds of lectures. And it was amazing, because I built up the movement there. And then I left in 2015, because, I saw the government, I see the attitude of the Israeli people toward Palestinian people, and, lack of love and this aggressivity. And I decided to leave Israel at that time. And a few months later, that was the first week of April 2005, and then in August, Rael received a message from the Elohim mentioning that all Jews and all Raelians should leave Israel. So I left a little bit before.
I will say, Rabbi, that you and I came to the conclusion about the way that the Bible is written separately. But I think one of the things that has brought us together today was the fact that I've been talking about this subject of the wording of the Bible for some time on my channel as well, and on my on this radio show. And I noticed immediately that the word Elohim appeared to be a plural word, and that its definition was a family of someones who came from the sky. But it wasn't the only thing. I think I've actually looked at how the descriptions of whoever it was that's described in the Old Testament particularly seem to have very earthly aspects to them in some respects, and personality in the same way that humans have different personality as well. And it always made me curious about whether this was whether every reference to God was actually a reference to God, or whether it was something or someone else. And so it's interesting that we've come to that kind of conclusion separately, but still the same conclusion, that something isn't quite right. And I know that in the first book, one of the very first things that I found a little bit difficult to reconcile in the beginning was the backward and forward between the wording of the Old Testament and then what it actually means. And so in order to kind of understand that, please talk about Rael's experience, his very first experience, and what happened there.
Well, on December 13, 1973, Rael was living in the center of France, close to Clermont-Ferrand. Then he was driving to his office like a regular day. All of a sudden, he felt the urge to go to a certain place, which is called the Puy de la Sola, which is an old volcano in the center of France, close to Clermont-Ferrand as well. And he was going there with his family, for picnic during summertime. But on December 13, he climbed all the way up to the volcano, to the center of the volcano. And then he asked himself, what I'm doing here? I have work to do. And, it's cold here, so I'm leaving. He didn't know why he was there. All of a sudden, he saw a flashing light in the sky, one up the object and one above. At the beginning, he thought it was an helicopter. Then, there was no noise, and he saw an engine like a spaceship coming down. And then he said, well, too bad I don't have a camera because I am a sport car magazine. I have my own sport car magazine, and I can make a good article about it. Then he saw a ladder opening and two legs coming down. Then he freaked out. He said, I don't going to move. Maybe they think I'm a tree or something.
A tree.
No, it's a normal attitude.
Yeah, of course.
So he saw, at the beginning, he thought it was a child because someone about 1.30 meters, 1.40 meters, came down and walked directly to him without any weapon, a very shiny face, full of love, no aggressivity at all. And he approached him. Then at that time, this man that was called Claude Vorillon asked him in French, because he only speaks French at that time, do you speak French? And the extraterrestrial replied, I speak all languages in the world. Well, he was surprised to have an answer back in French. Then he asked him again, do you come here often? The extraterrestrial replied, I come here many times, and today I come to meet with you. Your name is Claude Vorillon, you're married, you have 2 children, you have a sport car magazine, and we telepathically induce you to come here today because we have a message for you. Like we telepathically induced you 2 weeks ago to buy a Bible from La Pléiade where the name Elohim was not mistranslated by God.
Yeah, I found that very interesting. Then
he invited him into his craft. And as a sport car magazine and a sport car driver, a racing driver, he was very surprised because there were no steering wheel, there was no clocks there, nothing to that he imagined, inside. Then there were 2 chairs, one a little bit higher where the extraterrestrial sit, and one a little bit lower that they can be face to face, looking at the eyes of each other. Then he revealed to him the following message. We are the Elohim mentioned in the original Hebrew Bible, the Tanakh. Over 25,000 years ago, we came to your planet and we created all life with genetic manipulations of DNA. Then we started creating all plants and then trees, flowers, animals. And after 13,000 years, we decided to create the man to our image, after our likeness. We are the ones that send all prophets from all religions. Among the most important ones, Moses, Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, and many others, that as they were over 40, just sent in Israel at that time. Then people that, it reached a time now that you should understand and stop believing, because after the Hiroshima bomb, we decided to send one last messenger, and this messenger is you, because on August 1946, on August 6, the Americans throw a bomb over Hiroshima and then on Nagasaki that killed over 300,000 people.
Yeah.
And with nuclear, you have reached a nuclear power now. And with nuclear energy, you can either progress or you can auto-destroy yourselves.
And at the moment, this is a very interesting message to hear, because it seems as though humanity might be struggling with this point right now. In the beginning, when I was reading the book, I mentioned earlier, I found it kind of goes straight into Rael's experience, his very first experience when he was still Claude. and the discussion that he had was a little bit mind-blowing, where this member of the Elohim would recite a verse from the Bible, and then in the old language that it's written, and then describe it in terms of laser beams and spaceships. And I was reading the book, and my brain had to go backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards, and it sounded science fiction. But then when you realize that actually at the moment we understand what laser beams are, but thousands of years ago that was not a word.
Of course not.
So how would they describe it? They would be describing things. And if we're talking about 13,000 years ago, when some of these things were supposed to have happened, then how are they going to describe it? They're going to describe it in the understanding and the language that they have. And so I reconciled that pretty quickly.
When it reached this time, 1946, on August 6, that the Americans throw a bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the Elohim feel the urge to send the last prophet,
right,
to whom they give the name of Rael, because we have reached a time that they call apocalypsis, which means revelation and not destruction, like many people believe. So it's time of revelation. It's time that people should understand. Stop believing, because now we have the technology to understand.
Yes.
Besides that, they told Rael, we have, first of all, they give him the name of Rael. They change his name, Rael, which means the root of the word Israel.
That's right.
Because they ask him, they give him two aims. The first one was to spread this message worldwide. The second one was to build them an embassy, preferably close to Jerusalem, which is the third temple the Jews are waiting for. Because the first temple that Solomon built was to welcome the Elohim. Then they never came because of all his wives and mistresses and all that. They start bringing in idolatry into the temple and all that, and then they decide to to cut all contact with him and decide not to come. Then the first temple was destroyed, and then they built another one because the first one was destroyed, but without knowing that was a house that Solomon built to welcome the Elohim. And the idea of having that kind of a temple or a house, which is the embassy the Elohim are looking for, to be welcome as our fathers from space and not as invaders, because they can come anytime and take it over the whole planet. They're able to move a solar system from one place to the other. Let's not forget they have 25,000 years ahead of us. So they can do whatever they want, but they want us to invite them. They don't want to just arrive and here we are, bingo. And it will be a panic, because this happened in 1973. Rael have been spreading this message worldwide. Then in 1975, on October 7, they took him to their planet. Then he met with other prophets. Then they could explain him. They took one cell from his forehead and reproduced another human being, exactly a clone of himself. Then they explain him. You see, this is exactly your body, but without any memory, without anything. Now, how can we reach eternal life? We, the Elohim, have expectancy of life between 700 and 1,000 years without any disease. What happened after between 700 and 1,000 years is like if we have the body start getting old, and then we take a cell from this body, we reproduce a new body. And the same way now that when you buy a new computer, you can download the memory of that old computer into the new one, we have our technology to download all the memory, all the knowledge, everything you had in your brain during your life into the new body. And then you have a new body that can live between 700 and 1,000 years. And then we reproduce eternal life that way. This is the only way to reproduce eternal life, through cloning and through science.
So it's really a transference of the consciousness. So your consciousness...
Not only the consciousness, all the knowledge.
Everything.
All the knowledge, everything, all the souvenirs, all the memories, you can remember your father or your grandfather or small details when you had your houses where you were living, all that into a new body that can live between 700 and 1,000 years. After that, when this body gets too old after that age, well, they do the same and the same and the same, and they can reach eternal life that way. And this is why cloning is so important and science is so important. And that's the main reason why all governments are forbidden cloning, because the day one man or one woman in a laboratory are going to create another human being, the mystery of God is over. Where God stands between that? And the problem are the religions. The religious people and the religions that are not ready for that, because their monotheism, the mystery of God. What is it? What's going to happen then? Imagine the fanatic people who are so religious, and even the non-fanatic will never accept it until something will happen, and they will see it, because they need to see to believe. And even if they see it, maybe they will not believe it.
So this is something that that I noticed in the book, and this is slightly different take, but it was one of the things that I found kind of refreshing. When I think about keeping a movement like the Raelism movement alive, it takes money. And I know that the first book is about Rael's first experience, the second and the messaging, and the second book is the second experience and the messaging, and the third book provides clarification for some of the questions that arose between the two books, and also just some of the questions that need to be reconciled. And one of the questions was about money and supporting the movement, and I liked the response that was given by the third book, that Rael should promote the idea of there being something built for the movement to be able to flourish, for the Elohim to be able to visit, for prophets to be able to, for wisdom to grow, and that a very small percentage of income for anyone who joins the movement, something like 1%, goes towards this movement. And there was an outrage about...
Please allow me to correct. 1% is to allow Rael to his mission. Not all of them give the 1%. Besides that, there is a contribution that it's not Rael. All the Council of the Guides, many years ago, before I arrived, they have decided that, the same thing that Christians or other religions give 10%, like they deem to the church or other religions, to give a certain percentage of their income, that we could spread the messages worldwide. This is a suggestion, the 10%. But I know for many years, not many people could give 10%. Because when you make $200,000 a year or $500,000, it's easy to give 10%. But when someone is making only $20,000 a year, with the cost of life today and all the problems of life and the cost of living, many people, they cannot. But they help anyways, and nobody is put out of the movement if they don't give this 10%. We Raelians, we all work on nobody is paying us, not like the church, not like rabbis, not like imam. Nobody's paying us. Each and every one of us has their own business, they're employed or whatever, and we are all volunteers. Nobody gets a penny.
Okay. Well, actually, I know that, I can tell from your response, this is a question that's asked a lot. And actually, it wasn't my intention to question it. It was my intention to pretty much say the same thing that you're saying. When I was reading the books, I was reading it from the perspective of someone who wants to hear the messages, but also find the flaws, because I'm coming from a brand new place. And what I noticed was that there doesn't appear to be any greed that's even masquerading as something else. And that was something that got my attention, because when I think about all of the money that is sitting in the Vatican right now that could be put to good use, I had to look at it from that comparison. And that was something that I actually found very refreshing in the book. And also some of the other messages as well. They seem very different, very different for the way, compared to how we're conditioned to feel and believe and operate. But if you try very hard to remove your conditioning as you're reading, there's a lot of very interesting messaging in those books. And I wanted to share that with you. One of the things that surprised me was the discussion about children and behaviors that should be taught from the beginning, and the way that a person should be born, and the sacrifice that parents should make, that's ego-based sacrifice, if it's not going well as a parent, and things like that. And I found all of that very interesting. It's very different to anything that people generally do when a family is in crisis or something. And so these things got my attention. They did.
Definitely. And that's, the Elohim went through all what we are going through right now. And with so many years, 25,000 years, ahead of us. They are giving us the way they live, and they went through that, and how they solve the problems. Now, it's up to us to put them in order to behave, to be better, to confront our lives better, and to go further ahead with their knowledge and with their technology, instead of going the way we're going right now. Because when you see, sometimes I think about it, it's totally crazy. Instead of helping people, helping each other, because each person is the cell of this humongous body that composes humanity. And instead of helping each other, instead of caring for each other, instead of sharing with each other, in what kind of world are we living? Just making bombs to kill people. And then we send wheat to Africa to feed them. But on the other hand, you let them starve and you throw bombs on them to kill them. Not only in Africa. Look what happened in Palestine. Look what's happened in Africa. Look what's happened in Syria. Look what happened in Lebanon. Look what's happened in Iraq. Iraq, when Saddam Hussein was there, and I'm not doing a promotion about him because maybe he was a dictator, like they say, well, this guy was a dictator. When he was a dictator, nobody moves there, but nobody was killing each other. Look what happened with Gaddafi, the same. Gaddafi was an excellent person. He was a dictator in his way, but he wanted to make Africa unified. He didn't want the dollars anymore. He wanted to be paid in gold. So that was, how can he oppose the United States? How can he oppose the world? Then they went there, they bombarded him, they killed, and now they're killing each other.
Well, there does seem to always be an excuse for killing and war.
Of course. This is why Rael told us it's so important that every country should have nuclear weapons. Why? Because every country that have nuclear weapons, nobody attack them. Look at North Korea. What happened? Well, they have nuclear weapons, so we don't attack them. That's all.
I think that the thing that I noticed from the book is that it says that instead of focusing so much on the individual needs, there's a hierarchy, and the most important thing is infinity, which is basically everything is the first thought. And then the second thought is the Elohim, and then the third thought is humanity, and then the final thought is the individual. And looking at it in that way, it becomes impossible to make a devastating decision if you're thinking of it in terms of infinity rather than as an individual. Because as an individual, you're going to be thinking about, I need my $10 right now. And in the scheme of things, it's really meaningless compared to what if all of existence was affected.
Well, listen, what's most sad, I should say, is that, as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, each and every one of us is a cell of this humongous body that composes humanity. If we are a body, the cell of my eye should not shoot the cell of my leg, right, or of my hand, because it's the whole body. But people are not aware of that, and they're not conscious about that. And this is a symbol that represents infinity in space and time, which is very controversial, because there is a Star of David, and most of people say, wow, the Nazi sign inside. There is nothing about the Nazi sign. This is a symbol of peace and love. It's the symbol of the Elohim. And what does swastika represent? Represent infinity in time. And let me explain what the Star of David represent. The two triangles that you can see also on the screen behind me are the infinity small and the infinity large, which means we are in a planet. This planet is in a solar system. This solar system is in a galaxy. This galaxy is in a universe. And this universe is an atom of a cell that something or someone that is alive, which is not a God. It's an atom of a cell of something alive. Could be in form of a worm, of a cat, or I don't know. No, even the Elohim don't know, because it's so huge between the difference between us and this infinitely large that we don't know what it is. We know something. They told Rael, this is something that is alive, but we don't know. Could be a worm, it could be an ant, we don't know. And they don't know. Now,
this is, interesting.
Now, this human being or this animal or this something that is alive, let's call it this way, which is not a God, is also looking at another planet, at another skies, at other trees, and is inside someone even bigger. It's like the Russian dolls.
Yes.
And if we go back, like we are, this is infinitely large. And if we go back to infinitely small, one atom of one of our cells is an infinite universe where they are galaxies, solar systems, planets, and in some of those planets, there are people that are living. Now, for us, the time to breathe maybe is 100 years for them. And for us that are inside that humongous being or animal or whatever, one breath from him, it's maybe 80 or 90 years for us. We don't know. But the thing is that we are all one. And the swastika inside this symbol, it's infinity in time, which means this is the infinity and we are part of a whole. We are all connected. We are all connected with everything surrounding us and everything that we compose and everything that the entire humanity compose. And when we see this crazy world where we're living right now, that one president or one government is sending soldiers to kill other people that they don't even know.
Mm.
And as you have read in the book, the one that pulled the trigger is as responsible as the one that gave the order. So this is why in the messages of the Elohim and in the message that Rael brought from the Elohim is telling us very clearly, even if I ask you to do something against your consciousness, or even if the Elohim asks you to do something against your consciousness, you shouldn't do it. And we are the only religion that, if we call it that way, because what means the word religion? That we are connected to someone. We are connected to the Elohim. People, I think they're connected to a God, but they're not connected because the religion doesn't mean to pray. It's to be related, to be connected. Telling you, if I tell you something, or even the Elohim tell you something that goes against your consciousness, don't do it. It's not like the Elohim talked to Abraham and they told him to sacrifice his son and he was going to kill his own son because he was a stupid. Simply.
So this is something that interests me because it's not just being said by the Elohim. I've been looking at other types of wisdoms, ancient wisdoms, other types of belief systems, and there is a central theme in many of them that we are just an aspect of something bigger and everything is interconnected. And I understand that in Raelianism, there's a belief that there's no God, there's no soul. It is an extraterrestrial family of beings who created us because they were also created by another version of something that created them. They've created us, and we will go on to be the creators as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of this actually, it's so different that it's very hard to wrap your head around. And it's also very hard to understand with an interview here and an interview there and things like that. But when you actually look at the concepts, apart from the scandalous kind of controversial aspects of things like sex and things and the questioning of what exactly is an extraterrestrial and is it my kind of extraterrestrial that I believe or not, and the rest of if you put all of that aside, the rest of the messaging is really about being a positive person, doing good things in the world. And I know that the organization has a lot of humanitarian work that you do as well, to treat people, to give people an equal chance in life, and to take away the barriers that prevent equality wherever that's possible, and then give people the chance to prove themselves in a framework that allows them to trust each other.
Which
And
is love.
It's a very, very positive message collectively, and it's broken down into lots of small positive messages. And that's the reason why I think sometimes it's interesting, it's worthwhile going beyond a half an hour or an hour interview or article in a newspaper to understand something. You kind of have to really do things like read the books and understand, rather than just listen to what this person's opinion is and that person's opinion is and things like that. Because I'd heard lots of opinions, but I hadn't read the books. And once I read the books, it gave me a different kind of perspective. I have lots of
Absolutely.
perspectives that are all joined together.
Absolutely.
And this is another one.
This is why our books that could be downloadable for free on our website, rael.org, in any language. And that's, I mean, you read it and that's it. Make your own opinion. But stop listening to media that wants to put you on a box like you are a cult and you are sex and you are this and you're just taking money from people. I mean, this is just to discredit people. This is just defamation. This is all they're doing is just that. Why? Because we are disturbing. Because most of the people are either Jews, Christians, Buddhists, Muslim, whatever, and doesn't fit with the frame because religions have been put there to hold people, to make people afraid. Oh, you're going to go to hell. There is no hell, and there is no God, and there is no soul. As simple as that. Most of people that belong to a religion, to any religion, needs the two crashes. One is God, and the other one is the soul. Because when I'm going to die, well, I want to go to paradise. Everybody wants to go to paradise, but nobody wants to die. If you ask anyone, do you want to die? No, no, no. But when you're going to die, you're going to go to paradise. Of course, I want to go to paradise. And this is why they pray, and they're like, they think they're good people. And they deserve. Well, forget about it. Only people who deserve are recreated after the death their death if they have been positive and they have done something good for humanity. The rest are
That's
born
right.
from dust and they become dust. And that's it. That's all.
I had forgotten that bit. That's actually the question I was just about to ask you, because I thought I knew the answer and I just remembered that I had remembered it incorrectly. I was going to ask you about what death is. Yes, there is. You do believe in reincarnation, but not for everyone, because
Not reincarnation.
yes, it's a different recreation. It's a different principle, but it's that's right. And people who don't deserve to live again, and a few of them come to mind. I wonder what I just wonder, some people, but there are examples of people who do not deserve to be recreated. And then there are those that do. So, when it comes to the third temple, this temple, once if it's there, if it's being built to welcome the Elohim, I know that there are religions, Christianity in particular, thinks of things as the end times, for example, where the third temple is built and then Jesus returns and the Antichrist is defeated and then everyone lives in eternal peace with Jesus. What is the perspective of the Raelians with regards to what happens next once the Elohim return?
At the time, let me go a little bit before.
Sure.
At the time Jesus was sent, he was the Messiah. I mean, he was the messenger and brought the same message like Ariel was given by the Elohim. He was the son of one extraterrestrial and woman of the earth. This is why his mother was a virgin, because she was inseminated artificially. And that's the only possibility, that a woman that gives birth without having sex with anyone, she must be a virgin, definitely. And this is the only explanation, valid explanation that you have. Now, Jesus, when he came, his name was Yeshua, that was after giving to Jesus or another name, and so and so and so. That Jesus was a rabbi, a Jewish rabbi, and he was teaching. And then when he brought this message, people were start understanding and following him. And then that didn't please the establishment, because he was destroying the religion. He was destroying the religion, and he was not only destroying the religion, he was destroying the faith of those rabbis who were ruling all Israel and the area. So it was not for them. We have to get rid of this guy. And this is why he was killed. And this is the reason why, when he resurrected after so many days, he was cloned. And this is what Maria Magdalena saw and the others saw. He was resurrected, but not resurrected as a miracle. They took one cell, they put the same body out of his cave. Very simple. Then they download all his memory, and bingo, go ahead. And that's all. This is what happened to Moses, to Jesus. And what we need to understand also is that Jesus didn't come to change one word of the original Hebrew Bible or the Jewish religion. He was explaining and demystifying what was written there. And he never thought or believed. He didn't come here to change, to make a new religion. But Christians tell you today, we are treated in the Raelian movement as a cult. Yeah. But what are at the time of Jesus, those who start to be Christians, They were not a cult of the Jewish people. They were a cult as well. What's the difference between a cult and a religion? The number
Exactly.
of people.
I think a cult. Okay, so one thing I know is, there was a woman, I can't remember her name now, who wrote a book about the Raelian movement before 2000. I think it was when the message started to emerge in the 1980s or 90s, and I can't remember her name. And she wrote an entire book having delved in very, very deeply. And her conclusions were that she believed, in her expert, well-educated opinion, that the Raelian movement was unusual and that it was difficult to understand certain concepts. But in terms of being a cult, it's the strangest cult because it doesn't seem to want to take a lot of money from people. It doesn't seem to want to mistreat people. It doesn't have any violent tendencies. And it also carries out lots of humanitarian work around the world. But it might be a little bit strange for us because they believe a different thing. And I thought that was very kind of funny in a way, because it got me curious about the use of these derogatory terms. So if it's a positive thing that people want to believe in, it's a religion. If it's a cult, there are definitely cults out there. They do terrible things to their members, and the person at the top of the cult generally is a very unwell person who is sociopathic or psychopathic. And I'm not going to say that cults don't exist, because they do. But when it comes to the Raelian movement, I'm not sure that I believe it's a cult either, because it doesn't have the characteristics of all of those harmful things. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to interview you, because having a belief system that people may or may not agree with is different to being a cult. What it is, it's a different belief system that people don't understand. And
either they don't understand or they want to destroy because it doesn't fit the world. It doesn't fit what they have been taught. It doesn't fit because everything new, it's frightening for other people.
Yes,
everything
exactly.
new, it's disturbing a lot. And this is why they try, to destroy, they try to defame, they try to say so many programs and so many things bad about the Raelian movement, because they don't want people to know the truth about our origins. That's the main reason. Because, as I mentioned before, the day all these are going to be discovered, and we are discovering it with science and technology, soon the mystery of God will be over. Because, as I mentioned before, the day someone in a laboratory is going to create another human being, and we're already creating animals and cells and bacteria and all that, the mystery of God is over, because there will not be place between God and the doctor and the doctor and the creator and the creator, and the one he created. There will be no place for a God. It means, sometimes when we talk about calling, you want to play God. There is no God. This
is another part of the movement that I find interesting, is it puts the responsibility on a person to make a good life for themselves, but also to act with responsibility. And the promise of eternal happiness and living with God in the kingdom forever, if you just atone for your sins the day before you die, or on your deathbed within 20 minutes of dying, which, you may have been a horrible person your whole life, but then on your deathbed, you I don't know, do the rosary or whatever it is people do and ask for forgiveness, and then you're forgiven. That doesn't sound very genuine, and it doesn't promote a peaceful existence. It promotes
Use the expression,
selfishness
that's bullshit.
until the last minute. Yeah, selfishness until the last minute. But another thing that I liked was that there's a very heavy emphasis in your books about personal responsibility, personal freedom, some of which people might agree with and other bits they might find uncomfortable when it comes to the personal freedom, but personal responsibility as well. And that means that you have to enjoy your life, and you have to be the person that you should be in your life. You don't wait until the last minute so that you can be forgiven.
Absolutely.
And
All your
this
life
is very impressive.
to develop
It is.
our consciousness and become humans of supra-consciousness. It means your consciousness is fine, but to reach a level of supra-consciousness, to be aware every minute of what you're doing, and to be
Yes.
aware that when you see a person, like we have been taught, when you look at a person, think that maybe this person can die any minute. So if you look at a person with love, thinking that this person can maybe pass away in the next day or in the next minute or in the next year, you will behave very differently from the way you behave normally. To smile at someone that you don't even know on the street, you can make a difference. To treat everybody like your own, because it's written, love your neighbor like your own, but not only your neighbor, even people that you don't know. And this is why we do meditations for peace. And we have the second Saturday of every 2 months, we do global meditations where we are 400, 500, 700 people that gather together to send love to everything surrounding us, plants, trees, animals, and human beings, people who are sick, people who are in jail, people who are fighting, and send them love and send them harmony, because we are part of a whole. And if we can cure this disease, which is aggressivity, greed, and this lack of love that is running the whole world because of greed, because of money, this will not reach nowhere. I heard a couple of days ago, the president of France was telling in the news in France, was telling, well, we need to produce weapons because this is the economy of our country. Wow. Weapons to kill people. And this is based on the economy of the country. So imagine, with 7 years of the American budget for the army, 7 years, everybody, the entire humanity, could live properly under a roof with food, and everybody could live without working for the rest of their lives. This is humanity. This is what the Elohim are giving us as message. This is the way we should behave, because if we continue this aggressivity, we will auto-destroy ourselves. With all the bombs that are worldwide, we can blow up our planet maybe 2 million times, not one bomb like Hiroshima. That was like a fireplace at that time in 1946. Imagine what we have today in every country that have nuclear bombs. And it's good that they will have them, that nobody will attack them as well, but not to use them until one day we develop our consciousness and our supraconsciousness to love and care for each other. And this is the main goal of the Raelian movement, to develop our inner happiness. Because if you're happy, you make other people happy. And this is what we should develop in our life, because otherwise we're going straight to the wall. The problem is that we're destroying our planet, but we don't have another one where to go. Not yet. So, like someone said recently, if you give bamboo to a panda, or you put $1 million, they're going to take the bamboo. But we are destroying our own resources for money. Are we going to eat the money? As simple as that. And if we don't realize it and change this world, and this is the goal of the Raelians, to change this crazy world, we are going to auto-destroy ourselves. Because according to the laws of the Elohim, according to the laws of the universe, we are ready to welcome other extraterrestrial civilizations. But before reaching that level, we need to be pacifists. We need to destroy all weapons on earth. We need to love each other and care for each other. We need to love our neighbor like our own. And it's written in the Ten Commandments, and for the Jewish people, it's written in the Sixth Commandment, you shall not kill. And in the name of Judaism, the Zionists in Israel are killing others that are probably Jews as well. Because many Jews, when they had the diaspora, they left the country. They could have lived, but some people stay there. Unfortunately, they had to convert. Like at the time of the Inquisition, the Isabel the Catholic, many Jews in Spain, they didn't leave, they convert to Christianism. And they still carrying the name of Jews. But they converted, like many converted to Islam, because they were forced to. Either you do it or you were killed. That's all. So many people, they say, well, I have my father here that is sick and I cannot leave him and go back or leave the country. So I say, I have to convert. Okay, I convert. So what? And Palestinians are Jews who were, even the Bedouins are Jews who stayed there. They have more rights than all those who came from Eastern countries, like from Poland, from Germany, from Russia, from everywhere, because these people, they don't belong there. They took over a country and they're putting the Palestinians aside and the Muslims aside to take over the land. That's all. The land of Israel in 1948, when the declaration of the State of Israel was done, it's mentioned in the books that the Elohim say you should bring back from the east, from the north, from the south, and from the west, all Jews. What's the reason they brought all those Jews after the Holocaust to Israel? That they could build the third temple and welcome the last messenger of the Elohim, which is Israel, who is the long-awaited Messiah. They have been waiting for years, but in their mind, I don't know, not him, it's someone else. But when the Elohim sent Moses or Jesus or Buddha or Muhammad, they didn't consult with others to see, oh, which one do you like? Which one is more suitable for you?
That's the reason why somebody like Jesus has gone through a persecution anyway, because he was talking about things that people may not have always understood or agreed with, and that's the reason why he was murdered, I guess.
Absolutely.
And it just goes to show that we haven't changed very much over the course of time.
And besides that, after Jesus was killed, Israel was left, the protection of Israel was left by the Elohim. It was left, so they had 2,000 years of exile. Punishment. And this is why the Holocaust happened. That the same thing like when the Jews left with Moses on the desert, when they were liberated from Egypt, that they were 400 years in slavery. All of them, they didn't enter like they say, well, Moses got the Ten Commandments in Mount Sinai. That's not true. They got lost in the desert. They went until Saudi Arabia. 40 years they were lost, that all those who left die before getting to the land of Israel, and they enter through the Jordan. It means, where is a Sinai that is here and Jordan that is here? They enter to the Jordan. It means they went all the way to come to enter Israel from another world, from another place. And when they said, Moses died and he asked God that nobody will find his grave. There was no grave. He didn't die. They took him with him, like they took Enoch, like they took Elijah the prophet, like they took many others.
It's you see, these aspects of the movement, I do find them interesting. I mean, I'm digesting a lot of information from a lot of different sources, but there are questions that seem to fit very well with the beliefs of the movement in terms of what physically happened to Jesus, for example, and how did he physically return sufficiently credibly, because people wrote about him from numerous different perspectives after he died. And the Christians
70 years after he died. And that was not written,
so something obviously
from mouth to ear, from mouth to ear, and everything. Like if today I ask 100 people to design a tree, no one of them will have all of them will have a different trees. So the interpretation of someone that heard from his father or from his uncle or from his friend, this was happened to Jesus, he think about it, he think on his brain, and he developed, no, this happened. Nobody know what happened.
It's kind of
Jesus wasn't born on December 24th. Who knows it was December 24th? At that time, they had Jewish calendars. How can we know it was December 24th? Nobody knows. It's all a gimmick. When you were talking about the Vatican, you were mentioning the Vatican. With all the gold that is on the Vatican, and they have on their script that you have just a pair of sandals and just one robe. Where is all these millions for? They have buildings everywhere. They have even manufacturers for weapons as well. But they have also laboratories for drugs, for medicines. And all these people that are dying there, or people that are in the streets where it's minus 40, either in Canada or in other places, why they don't open the Vatican and then they put them there and feed them? Where is the love? Where is the care?
And the thing is, it is written that way in the Bible too. So you'd think that they at least would follow what the Bible says to take care of one another.
Sure.
I think that in today's society, it would be nice to hear your perspective of, I don't know. I think I'm thinking about people who are watching and listening. They might believe, they might not believe, they might be curious, they may not be curious. But how do you want to finish with the message that will kind of give us an understanding more about why you chose to be here and what you think is a good thing for us to hear right now in the world?
The first thing is to read the book that is available for free on Rael.org. You can download it and read it. That's it. It's for you, fine. It's not for you. At least you make your own opinion in your own mind instead of reading all the bullshit that is mentioned in the newspapers and on the medias and all those who criticize without knowing what we're talking about. Or they want to destroy something that disturbs them and destroy their beliefs and destroy the church and the Vatican. Because I can go ahead and tell you something more important. At the time of Moses, Pharaoh wanted to kill all the newborn child Jews because he knew someone that was called the liberator will be born. At the time of Jesus, Herod, that was king of Israel, decided to kill all the newborns as well because he knew a king will come. That was at the time of Jesus. And at the time of Rael, why Hitler wanted to kill all Jews from Central Europe? Because he knew by the group of Chuli as well that someone will be born that will change the world and the surface of the earth. And that's why he took the swastika, which is a symbol of peace that in India and in other countries from Asia, to make it hate by the Jewish people. Because he wanted to make something perfect, and the swastika is perfect. All this is just to tell you, listen, make your own mind, but be open-minded when you read this book. Okay. And ask yourself just one single question after reading it, because there is no other question than just one. What if this is true?
Yeah, good point.
What if this is true? That's all. Ask yourself a question.
That's a very good way to end. What if it's true? Rabbi Mellul, it's been a real pleasure to have you on the show. I'm so glad that you took the time to come and speak to me. And I do hope that people will read the book and make up their own mind. I'm going to make sure that I provide a link in the description for today's episode to the I'll just do rael.org website. People can look around and find anything that interests them. And Absolutely. I do know that the books are all available for free download there if anyone is interested. But I do appreciate you giving me your time. And thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure, Ellie. It was a pleasure to be with you. And anytime, I had so many lectures worldwide where rabbis come over and they try to take people out that they will not listen what I am telling you during my lecture. I mean, if they are so great and so brave to come and prove the opposite of what I am saying, because I bring original texts from the original Bible and other Hebrew scripts, confirming what I'm saying, confirming the messages of the Elohim and confirming that they are many and that they come from another planet. And this is written in Hebrew, in the original Hebrew Bible, without any doubt. But instead of coming over, they're so educated as rabbis, instead of coming over and try to make me feel ridiculous, they prefer to hide. Because for what reason? Because they can't prove the opposite.
I will say that, in your movement, you're speaking and sharing that message. But even outside of the Raelian movement, there is a growing number of people who are recognizing that there's something not quite right about the interpretation of the Bible, and that it has truth within it, but it also has a lot of other nonsense as well, which we don't know where that came from. But the truth is something a little bit different to what it's been presented as. And so the fact that a lot of people have that in common, regardless of where they're coming from in their philosophy on life, I think means that eventually, the more we know, we will all ultimately converge. I just hope that it's sooner rather than later.
We are here to demystify the Bible, as simple as that, and to make people understand that they could stop believing. After you read this book, as I say, stop believing and try to understand.
Yeah.
Put your beliefs aside, read it, and then make up your mind. And then ask yourself a question: what if this is true? That's all.
Thank you very much. It's
Thank
been a
you,
pleasure.
Ellie.
So that was my interview with Leon Ariel Mellul, the chief rabbi for the Raelian movement. As you can see, he is an articulate fellow. He's obviously a very brave man because he has been traveling the world and speaking on behalf of the Raelian movement for many decades. And often he has been chased by criticism and ridicule and attempts to debunk and all kinds of things. Certainly controversy has chased him around, as it has the entire Raelian movement. The things that are most controversial in the movement that are used as a weapon kind of against the movement are the concept of what's described to be free love, and also this just the extraterrestrialness of it all, because the traditions and religions that form part of the norms of society would have us believe that God is an entity in the sky who single-handedly created everything that exists in reality, and that it is our job to serve him during our lifetime by worshipping him and believing in him and spreading the word of him so that we can be worthy to spend eternity with him after we die in his kingdom. He's represented by so many different names in the Bible, in particular in the Old Testament, where he has many names, including Yahweh and Elohim and many others. We can't reconcile in this traditional normal existence of ours, we can't reconcile the fact that Elohim is actually a plural definition for something. And we also can't really reconcile the fact that the God Yahweh that appears in the Old Testament was kind of grumpy and took revenge on people, and that he was a God, and that it was our job to worship him and to be grateful for everything that he did to us, as well as for us. However, if the Elohim are a family of human entities that were created by their creator as a form of their kind of humanity, and if Yahweh, who is the chairman or the chief of all of the Elohim, is an entity that is tangible and has lived a life just like any other person has, then we can suddenly begin to understand how he could have a personality that included anger and rage, and he could have made decisions that were kind or selfish or revengeful based on whatever it was that was taking place at the time. And that those things could have been captured into this book that is now called the Bible. The question is, why has it been interpreted in the way that it has been by the church? And that's one of the things that the Raelism movement wants to be able to define for us, or help us to be able to understand and clarify. The position is basically that religion is a buffer that stands between us and reality, and that not everyone involved in religion is necessarily doing this on purpose, because people are going to believe what they believe and they're going to join a religion based on their belief. However, the concept of religion is a deliberate design to blind us from the truth, and that the truth is that there is no God, and that there is no soul, and that we were created by a tangible, non-godlike extraterrestrial being who also was created by a non-godlike extraterrestrial being who may also have been created the same way, and the entities before and the entities before and before. And that we may appear to be a whole person, but we might in fact just be an atom of an atom of an atom. And that reality is infinite, and that it's based on science and technology rather than spirituality. And that once we wrap our head around that, by perhaps being able to start cloning humans ourselves and becoming the creators that we're so afraid to become, we might suddenly realize that everything that we believed has always been wrong. Now, I'm not saying this is the case. I'm saying this is a perspective. I'm going to be really honest about what I was thinking when I went into this experience and what I think now. I was happy to interview a representative from the Raelist movement when I first went into this exercise. I didn't have any preconceived ideas, but of course I did have my conditioning, which all of us have from our life. And so I started reading from the very first page. And immediately I hit a stumbling block because at the very beginning of book 1, there are pages and pages and pages during which Yahweh is describing to Claude, who now is renamed Rael, but Claude at the time, a variety of different verses from the Old Testament. He's reading the verses from the Old Testament, and then he's immediately translating them word for word into what they actually are supposed to mean in the modern language. And so you will hear something that sounds really ancient and Bible-ish, and then immediately following that, there'll be a sentence or phrase or paragraph that is talking about spaceships and laser beams and levitation and all kinds of things, metamorphosis and all kinds of things that just don't seem to make any sense. They don't seem to reconcile. And so it's really hard in a theoretical sense, but also in a practical sense for your brain to go from one to the other, as you're reading. And the book nearly lost me as a result of that. If I had simply picked up the book because I was curious, I probably would have put it down at that point because, I'm kind of nuts and bolts, aren't I? I'm very skeptical when it comes to being a spiritualist because I know that I am. It's a character flaw. But because I wanted to interview Rabbi Mellul, I persevered. And when I persevered, the book just opened up for me. And suddenly I began to see the messages. But I needed to understand the beginning first. The messages I'll talk about in a moment. Moving into the second book, I found another stumbling block, which was a little bit difficult to overcome because I am a woman living in the modern world. And I have the conditioning of my upbringing and my education, but also the reality of society as it currently is. There is discussion about Rael, who formerly known as Claude, the messenger who has been chosen by the Elohim, being taken by them and given experiences, sensory experiences that also come with additional messages. And one of those sensory experiences relates to being given a half a dozen different women who have been created for the sole purpose of giving him pleasure. And I'm reading this part of the book, and as a woman who is independent and has had experiences in the world, some of which have been less pleasant than others, with a variety of different men, then I think to myself, oh gosh, this just sounds like somebody's, fantasy. I'm not sure that I believe any of this. I decided to put that aside because if I was to harp on that, then I would be tainted when it came to the rest of the book. So I put that aside. I then started to read about the concepts of personal freedom, including free love or something of that nature. That's what the Raelist movement is mostly known for being this free love kind of yielding UFO adoration committee. And if you look at them that way, then yes, you're going to be tainted by the fact that, this is a boys' club and it's just about being able to have unaccountable sex with as many women as you want, perhaps even all at once. But that's not what the book is saying. And in order for me to understand that, I had to read the entire book. So what the book is saying is that there are concepts that are very important parts of our existence. We are entitled to be whatever it is that we need to be in order to be happy. And that's what our creators want from us. all of the perceived restrictions in our lives are based on the boxes that our society's framework has placed upon us. And that includes our religious framework. To have children out of wedlock is a sin. To get divorced is a sin. To, give up your children is a sin. To have sex with more than one person at once is a sin. To have sex with a person of the same sex is a sin. There are so many sins. In the Bible, there are so many sins that you really need to be Einstein to keep up with all of them. You need to have at least a photographic memory. According to the Raelists, though, it's not about free love. It's about freedom. It's about freedom to be whoever it is you need to be. You can be celibate and they will be happy. But you can also choose not to be. The important factors here are that everything you do that involves another person should be done with mutual consent. That's the thing that's important, so that humanity can trust one another. And there also should be a lack of judgment. But it should be entered into, whatever it is that you do in your life should be entered into with you fully accepting your own personal responsibility. And when you look at it like that, then the whole concept of this controversial free love thing, it kind of becomes diminished. It's a very small part of the movement that has been blown out of proportion for decades, because that's what gets clicks and that's what gets attention, and that's a great headline to put in a newspaper and things like that. It's also a really easy way to ridicule an entire group of people. You know what people aren't talking about very much from the Raelist movement? They're not talking about the actual messages. And the messages are very interesting. They completely redesign the concept of reality. Everything from being born with with access to certain things, and being raised in a family or outside of a family, choosing what you want to believe in, having that independent thought, progressing in life with the basic elements that you need to be able to do the best that you can, so that you can be responsible for whether you shine or not. Equality is very important. Choosing who you love is your own decision, not someone else's. Choosing who you decide to be is your decision, not someone else's. Raising a child, taking personal responsibility for that child, and letting go of your ego in the event that what you've done so far doesn't appear to be working, or if there's a problem along the way. The society also has a very strong belief in justice and an attempt to eliminate criminality, and to eliminate things like mental illness, and to be able to elevate the people who are capable of leading humanity, rather than just the ones that campaign really well, or are particularly good grifters, or are very, very selfish and self-serving. And it's a very interesting set of messages. Even just the emblem that the rabbi is holding, wearing around his neck, is the Star of David with the swastika contained within it. And he had to explain the concept of the swastika, because the concept has been tainted so much by the Nazis. It's important to note, and I have covered this in previous episodes of the radio show, the swastika existed long before the Nazis did. This interview raises yet more questions and makes me wonder whether some of it might actually be more pieces of the puzzle. So I would really like to know what you thought about this interview. Did it leave you with questions? How do you feel about some of the messages that were discussed in today's show? Would you like to see Rabbi Mellul return back to talk about other topics? perhaps in the future. So leave comments, discuss the topic, and let's just see where this goes. Another piece in the puzzle. My name is Ellie. You can find me at Ellie Dreams and Under on YouTube. Thank you to everyone who is watching or listening on one of KGRA's broadcasting platforms. If you want to be a member of the KGRA viewership family, don't forget when you go to live.kgradb.com to put in promo code Ellie to get 30% off your subscription. That's it for today. It's been a pleasure. Until next time.